All right, what's good, guys? We've got another episode of For the Crew podcast with you, another part of our preseason review. This episode is going to be a little short today. We've got John from the In 90 Minutes podcast. But like always, we've got some additional news to talk about first before we get into the episode. First off, the Columbus Crew have introduced their brand new kit. It's been met with some mixed reception, but overall, personally, I think it looks fire. Collar's a nice addition, which kind of goes back to that more classic style of football kit. But we definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Former longtime Columbus Crew player and Ohio native Josh Williams was recently promoted from Crew 2's assistant coach to now one of the assistant coaches for the main team. And while we are never excited about a loss, the Crew played a preseason game against Nashville, which they lost 1-0, but they gave a lot of playtime to players who we don't normally consider starters. And Nariman has now been officially signed. With that being said, down the line, we plan to get some more interviews for both Toronto and Miami. We just couldn't get that together for this episode. And our next episode will be a season preview for the Crew plus the opening game preview featuring special guest Fabian Renko, who's the content team lead for Kickbase and a freelance writer for The Athletic. That's all we got. Let's get into the episode.
All right, everyone, welcome back to our Eastern Conference preseason preview series. Today we will be covering Orlando City FC. SC, actually, right? You guys are an SC team.
SC, soccer club.
That's right. Yes. And we got John from In 90 Minutes podcast with us today. How you doing, John?
Doing well. Thank you guys for your patience. Sorry about my internet issues the past couple of days.
No, very fine. So to give a little coverage on Orlando in the past year, they finished 9th in the playoffs, in the playoff bracket. So they barely squeezed in and immediately lost to Chicago in the wild card round, who then went to go lose it to Philly. But Orlando had a very good stretch around, June to about August, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys beat us one game during that time, and then we drew the second half in the later game. But you guys just kind of fell a little apart towards the end of the season, and then it played into the playoffs there. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, we weirdly didn't start off as slow as we have the last, three seasons before that, 2-3 seasons before that. It was kind of back and forth, and then in late March into April and May, or maybe it was late April into May, we had a stretch of like 3 or 4 straight 0-0 results, and then, like you said, caught fire for basically June after the international break, which we really needed because we had a stretch of in late May where it was like we played, I think every week in May we had 2 matches. So the boys were dead, and then brought it together, and then had the controversial loss to Miami, which we call Fort Lauderdale here in Florida because that's where they play, is Fort Lauderdale.
That's exactly where they play, yes.
And had the controversial loss, typical Leagues Cup shenanigans with Inter Miami and their pals in at Pro, and then just kind of didn't show up against LA, nor did we show up much of the rest of this, missed much of the rest of the calendar. And, our show, we argue 9th, 8th and 9th aren't playoffs because it's a play-in game. And, so, I mean, the club tried to push that we made 6 straight playoffs. We're like, guys, we didn't. In our opinion, and a lot of fans' opinions, we didn't even make playoffs last year.
Yeah, the wild card spots are a bit interesting since you do have that one extra game. Like, it already is weird enough having 9 teams per se make playoffs and then only one do a wild card match. So I can see why you guys would not be too happy with that, since kind of technically 9th is in the lower half of the table, and making playoffs from that position's a bit interesting, to say the least. But yeah, I'll get into the questions. I would love to keep talking about how Orlando was last season, and I'm sure they'll play into some of what I have to say here, since I've always found them a very interesting club as a Columbus fan, because you guys always have great teams, usually have solid teams making playoffs, and then it falls apart right at the end almost every single year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke around here that we call it summertime sadness before the last 3 or 4 seasons, where it's like we start off great. I mean, I even remember in I think it was 2017, we started off, and in April or May we were top of the table, and then our
Mhm.
coach, our manager, that's when we had Christ. He ended up getting fired by mid-July. So I mean, we really seem, to traditionally have a decent start, kind of fall apart in the summer, and then come back, a little bit late season, pull it out. I mean, no, our second playoff appearance ever was 2021,
Mhm.
and we snuck that in on decision day. And we
That's right, you guys kicked us out of playoff run on that.
yes.
I remember that
Yeah.
game. Oh my gosh.
And and then the last since 23, so 3 full seasons, it's like we start off 23 and 24, we started off really slow, and then caught fire in the summer. And then this year we kind of went back and forth at the beginning, or this past year we kind of went back and forth, like I said, and then really, and then caught fire in the summer, and then really fell off at the end. Whereas the prior 2 years we didn't really fall off until playoff time came.
Yeah. So then with that then, with the early kind of playoff exit or whatever you want to call the wild card match, how would you feel the perspective is around Orlando City for the 2026 season then?
No, overall, I feel it's negative. A lot of
Mm,
unknowns. I mean, we have one of the smallest rosters. We're basically a week out from the season starting. We
yeah.
only have, I think, 21 to 23 players, so barely even enough for a game day squad. Or a max game day squad in the league. And then also, we lost a lot of players. We lost Gillespie, a lot of key players. We lost Gillespie, which was our starting goalkeeper.
Yep.
Lost Rodrigo Schlegel, which was one of our starting center backs, and had been with the club since 2020. For those that are sickos and watch everything, he's the one that came in that crazy uh, penalty shootout.
He got the red card,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
the one that got he's the one that got the save
Oh,
when
he's the
Gillespie,
striker.
center back.
Oh, he was a center back.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's the one that came in, had the long hair, and got the save after
Yeah,
Gillespie was
yeah.
sent off.
I remember
So
that game. That was fun.
yeah, so I mean, he has one of the most iconic images, in our club's short history. We've been around since 2012, so not as long as Columbus or some of the other teams in the MLS, but we still have a decent history as
Yep.
far as professional soccer goes. But and then lost Cesar Arujo, starting defensive midfielder. Um, Obviously, we forced Luis Muriel out because he just wasn't panning out for us.
Yeah.
Um, and then everybody kind of thought that with the way the season ended and the failure of a season, with how our new GM, because our old GM kind of got promoted, and then his assistant was promoted to our new GM. um the way he's been talking, how we're going to start winning, and you know have higher expectations, everybody was kind of like, okay, well, Oscar Pereira was the previous general manager's guy. Season didn't pan out how we expected it to. He's gone this off season. Well,
Mhm.
he's still here. We're missing a lot of players. Sold a couple, several young guys like Thomas Williams was somebody that played out for the MLS Next Pro that we really thought was good, like the next guy up. He was sold to Nashville, and then Schlegel was sold to a team in Mexico,
Mhm.
and it was kind of like those two moves didn't really make sense. And then Dagger Dent or Halcyon, which has kind of been our Swiss Army knife. He was sold, I forget to where, honestly, but he was sold. Kind of played right back. Everybody knows Alex Freeman was probably leaving this winter, if not in the summer. So just a lot of, kind of negatives going into end of the season. We did bring some people on that are positive. A lot, three young Brazilians in particular, a winger, a center mid, and a center back. That is the positive, but
Mhm.
with the way last season ended, and then still have an open DP slot and not much buzz about that right now, it's kind of hard to go into the season very positive.
Yeah, like any MLS team that kind of leaves a DP spot open, or even a U22 roster, it feels like you're starting the season behind compared
Hmm.
to other teams. It just has such an influence on a team's identity and like just like who they will field even. And when I've always just kind of like laughed how there's always like multiple teams every year who will go half a season without filling a spot like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of just stupid as like a club to not feel a need to fill it in when that's like the only chance you really get to kind of put in money to compete in MLS.
Hmm. And I mean, we're banking on. I have a feeling. I don't. This is rumors. That we're that the club's banking on a lot of players being very cheap or on the free
Mhm.
after the World Cup, and being able to snag somebody, you know, game-changing DP then for pennies on the dollar, hopefully.
Yeah. So would you kind of say that this season's probably going to be more of a development season and kind of trying to turn things around in a way then, like giving time, getting some young players, and then maybe seeing what you can do in the summer window as well?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our three U22s, well, two of our three U22s were open to start the off season. Both of those were taken by the center back and the winger. The center back, especially,
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember the Brazilian name. I had it in my head and then it escaped me. But one of the biggest clubs, three clubs in Brazil. Um, their fans were not, their supporters were not very happy that he was sold, especially to a team in the United States. They wanted him to go to Europe,
Mhm.
and he came here. We're kind of expecting him to be a one and done. So excited to see what he does. And then the rumor is that the manager's seat, we call him Poppy here in Orlando. Poppy's seat is nuclear right now, and there's talk, and we talked on our show on Monday that if we drop our first two matches, because our first match is Red Bulls and then our second match is our rival Miami, and they if he, depending on how we lose those two matches, we he could very much be gone after two matches even.
Which that's not really what you want as a club to start the season without a coach because you've had this whole off season to kind of choose that identity if you're keeping or leaving him. So
Exactly.
that's going to be a little rough as a fan and even for Poppy as well to be on the hot seat before the season's even started.
Yeah, and it's a touchy subject in Orlando with Perea, with Poppy, because he did bring us our first major trophy. We won a couple USL championships or cups or whatever they called it back then. Um, and then in 22 we did win the U.S. Open Cup.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people that are loyal to him, you know, almost to a fault. And it's, I mean, in my opinion, he should be, if we build statues outside of our stadium, he should be the first statue built, even over, a Kaká or Nani, because he turned us around, turned us from a club that didn't make playoffs for five straight seasons. And then 2020, short and COVID year, we almost won MLS is back tournament. We make the
Mhm.
playoffs, and we've made playoffs every year until last season, and almost made it if we didn't have the dramatic fall off.
Yeah.
So it's a very touchy subject, and it's one of those. It's he's done well for us, but I feel like we've kind of reached the pinnacle with him, as far as what he can contribute.
Yeah. And then one of the other transfers we haven't really discussed yet was the Alex Freeman transfer to Europe. US men's fans were a huge fan of that. And I'm sure Orlando fans feel like that was just a major movement in the right direction for the development pathway at the club. And with us talking about how you guys are you might be going for a developmental year, how do you feel about that move and how it kind of speaks for the club's model of player development?
Um, it's twofold because I love seeing our players go abroad, go overseas and be successful, go to other clubs in the MLS as long as it's not against us and be successful. Um, but at the same time, a broader outlook on things is the MLS really needs, and I know roster rules and everything really prohibits it, but the clubs need to do a better job of keeping their homegrown talent at home. One, it'll help the product. The MLS as a product as a whole, and I also think it'll, in the long run, help the national team because you look at most of the dominant countries anymore, and a lot of them play either in their home country or very close to it, and we're shipping our guys, clear across the globe to
Yeah.
compete at the highest levels, and I just it's cool to see because we saw I used to when I lived closer to the training facility, would go to every Orlando City B match, our MLS Next Pro team, and saw Thomas develop from a 17, 18-year-old to the season before he was called up 19-year-old, where he was very dominant. Never saw him skyrocketing like he did last season,
Yeah.
but and then to see him achieve what he did last year on an individual level, and then have the club in mind because he even said that he wanted the club to get something if he was going to leave. He didn't want to leave on a free, and was able to get it done in the winter transfer window. And he's not the first one. Hopefully, won't be the last. There's somebody right behind him that's young that I hope we start the season with, in Zachariah Taifi. I don't know his nationality, like commitment, but he's Moroccan and American USA, um, and he a little bit different physical profile than Freeman.
Mhm.
Will beat people more with his quickness than his just ridiculous athletic ability that everything Freeman had. But where the development, and I can't really be very bullish on it, is we have this young guy in Taifi, but then it's looking like the rumor is with the friendlies, the exhibition matches we've had, preseason matches we've had this year, our former starting left wing is going to be playing right back. And it's
Mhm.
like, you know, that's going to be, for Columbus fans, it's going to be a huge hole. As long as, in my opinion, as long as he's starting from what we've seen from him on a defensive end, because he's very fast, but he doesn't have the physicality you need to be a, defender.
Okay, so you think that's kind of going to be the area that teams are probably going to try and stab through then, I guess, per
Oh,
se?
100%, 100%,
Gotcha. So,
100%.
yeah. Would you feel Orlando's kind of lacking in the back line right now a bit?
Absolutely. Right now, Robin Janssen's out for at least 3 to 4 months. He had a Jones fracture in his foot. Had surgery on that last week, so he's out. We obviously sold Schlegel.
Mhm.
So that really right now leaves us with the 19-year-old that just transferred from Brazil, and David Brecalo, who all last season played left back, but his natural position's a center back.
So he might
Um,
actually see some time in his natural position then.
yeah, I think that was the plan, is to have him play center back this year,
Yep.
alongside Janssen, and then when Iago came along, alongside Iago, because we did Janssen last year coming into the offseason was had an option for this year, and it wasn't picked up, and they renegotiated. So it was almost like they had a conversation with him. Hey, you're probably not going to get as much playing time this year. We're going to get somebody in a transfer market, but you'll be our first guy off the bench. So center back, we right now have two active. Left back, we have Marin, that had a handful of games we picked up in the summer, late summer last year. Didn't impress. And then the right back, we have nobody really that's ever been a starting right back, on our roster. And then after that, it's guys that have been on OCB for quite some time.
Yep. All right, I got two more questions for you here before we wrap up. First, if you had something to say to all the Columbus Crew fans listening, since most people listening probably will be Crew fans, what should they expect when they watch Orlando City this year? When most likely when we play them, what would you think we need to watch for?
Honestly, unfortunately, depending on when you play us, if we still have the current manager, more of the same where, we kind of sit back and let you guys control possession of the ball, whether it's up in Columbus or here in Orlando. And then I guess we'll try to counter you and catch you guys, catch you
Yeah.
guys out a little bit. Um, you know, Ideally, Poppy changes his ways, and we see more of a creative, free flowing, type of tactic from him. And we're controlling, especially when we're at home, controlling the match and the opponent's end rather than vice versa. Or if we have the ball, it's generally getting knocked around the midline or just inside our defensive half.
Yep. I think so. I was looking at the scores right now for when we were going to play you guys. We play you in April, early April, and then early October. So we might
Okay.
see two completely different Orlando teams when we reach that October game, depending on what's happening at the beginning of the season and what, of course, happens in the summer with you guys. Since
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
almost always different teams by the end. Uh,
Absolutely.
then last question for you: what is the high for Orlando this season? What do you think is your ceiling, and what do you think is the absolute low that could happen?
Honestly, like I said, with when you ask what to expect, it depends on what the coaching staff's able to figure out tactically, how they change things.
Hmm.
And then it also depends on the type of player we're going to be able to get in the summer. Um, if we're able to get somebody that's, in their prime, that's going to, take this team and really, put the team on his back, that can change a season. Ideally, as things stand, I see us at best finishing fifth. And, at worst, if things go horribly wrong and, we let our manager go, in the first couple months, and it could potentially be a wooden spoon year depending on what we're able to do in the summer, finding a manager and again, like I
Yeah.
said, finding a designated player.
Yeah, you don't want to be put in that same spot that LA Galaxy was in last year where they like had a bad run at first and then you just like you have to spend the summer and then after that playing catch up and by then it's usually too late. You can't ignore half of a season, sadly. You have to be able to play in both. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
hopefully Orlando can find that form so they can get into the playoffs then.
yeah, I mean, traditionally, obviously, this year's a little different because we have the break starting. I think May 23rd is the last match. But
Yep.
traditionally, if by June 1st you're not in a playoff position, you're not making playoffs. Traditionally,
Yeah, yeah, it's usually pretty much decided by then, but at the same time, you want to be able to make playoffs early, but then you also want to be the team in form in the second half of the season too, because you're always going to have these teams like Philly who just excel right off the bat and then usually fall apart by the time they reach playoffs
hmm
or Cincy's kind of had that a bit recently too. That's just like the last thing you want is to be the team on fire in May and then just drop off hard.
yeah, and I mean, that's what happened in 23 when we um, played you guys in the second round. Is
Yep.
we kind of had the great summer, and then slowly you started to see the team slow down, and the last month of the season kind of slowed down, and they didn't we made it out of the first round because it was the best of three. Well, we would have made it out anyway. um and then play you guys, and we kind of played, I call it poppy ball, where we sit back and defend and let you guys control possession, and then
Yeah, you guys gave
uh
us a lot of movement that game. I
yeah,
thought I thought you guys were going to dominate us. I thought that
yeah.
was going to be the exit.
Well, because that's what we did. If you remember, not to rub salt in the wound, but earlier in the year,
Yeah, you
we
guys
beat you guys
destroyed us
four.
earlier.
Well, we won like 2-0 the first one, and then when it was in Columbus, and then the second one,
It's like
and
4-3, I think.
it was 4-3, and we came back from being down 2 goals twice to
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah,
That was
and
at home. That's still one of my, when you go to a match like that, that's up
great
there.
game, yeah. That's a game Columbus fans will remember because that was the kind of start of the downfall of Kevin Molino.
hmm
And just a lot of fans started hating him because we knew when he was getting subbed in, we're gonna lose a game. Because if you
Yeah,
like, I think the
former
fourth
Orlando
goal,
City player, by the way.
yeah, yeah, he came in, got subbed in, caught a foul against you guys, and then we got scored on off of that play. I remember that. So
Yeah.
like we had bad taste with Molina throughout playoffs, and then in Cincy, in the Eastern Conference Final, he gave us the second assist, you would say, but his pass kind of got us the winning
Okay.
goal of that game. So he
Yeah.
left on good terms, but for a minute there, we were not happy with Kevin Molina.
Yeah. Speaking of Cincinnati, just to talk about myself a little bit, I'm from Cincinnati, and went up to Columbus for different sporting things and such, and going up to Cleveland, I had family that lived in Cleveland, and
Mhm.
when the name of the derby came out, I'm like, that's perfect.
It's
That was
it's
real. It's just like
I
the
don't think there's a
perfect
better
one.
name in all of soccer or sports
Yeah.
in general. Like if you know, you know.
Hmm.
And
And
it's
it's
just
perfect because, like, my friends on here are like, "Why is it called that?" I'm like, "You go on between Cincinnati and Columbus. Once you get outside of
I-71.
Dayton, yeah, once you get outside of Dayton, it's like every like 2 miles, you
Yep.
know." And then if you remember and I'm not saying this disrespectfully, this is just what it was known as, the buttercream Jesus that was just outside Cincinnati. One of the
Yes.
comedians made a sign, it ended up catching on fire and burning down.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
remember that.
yeah, they so there's all that there, and then when that's what they called it, it's perfect. And but the ironic thing about it, just being from Cincy and growing up most of the time I did, is I probably can guarantee you a lot of the Cincinnati fans are also Ohio State fans. So it's kind of like a
They are, and it's
yeah,
pretty funny because I'm from Columbus, so Ohio State, Columbus Crew, Blue Jackets,
hmm,
give me it all. And
yeah,
then like I go to university in the southern of Ohio as well, so I'm near Cincy side. And everyone down here is still Buckeyes, and it's just
yeah,
like I'm like, wait, aren't you guys supposed to be like UC or something? I know they're not as good, but
hmm,
it's funny to me that like almost the entire state of Ohio is united for Buckeyes, but
hmm.
then any other sport, we will disagree and hate each other and spit on each other and then call Cincy part of Kentucky.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, I
right.
mean, it is ironic because you have your diehard University of Cincinnati people, and then you have the people that are, like myself. Part of the reason I'm an Ohio State fan is I'm a Xavier University basketball fan. Well, I
Uh,
can't really root for anything you see. So, and plus, obviously I was 12, 13, 14 years old when we won when I'm an Ohio State fan. So when we won the national championship with Drexel. So that kind of, jump started me being an Ohio State fan.
yeah.
And, it's, but it is funny how many FC Cincinnati fans, are Ohio State fans and used to be Columbus Crew fans, probably is at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I've met a lot of people from Cincy talking about that of like, oh yeah, I used to be a Columbus Crew fan, like they kind of like half supported Columbus Crew because it is still
Hmm.
2 hours away. Yeah, I can see how that's hard. And when you do get a local team, I think that's totally fine to switch at that point. I'm a little sad by it, but I get it. It's nice to get an expansion team. It's awesome to have a team closer to you and then being able to support them. But
Yeah. I mean, that's, I'm an Orlando fan because when I moved down here, FC Cincinnati wasn't even a thing. And I knew, like, they would be, because of the youth soccer there, and it's a mecca for youth soccer, that they would be getting a team, sooner rather than later. And but Orlando was here first, and went to my first match and fell in love with it, and now I'm make myself psychotic talking about it on a weekly basis sometimes.
that's the truth of it right here. All right. Thank you, John, for joining us. If you want to quickly give a shout out to all of your links, your socials, go right on ahead.
Yeah, definitely. It's on, or I'm sorry, we changed our name, in 90 minutes podcast, everywhere. Just in 90 minutes podcast, everywhere: YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all your Blue Sky. I know I'm forgetting one. If you find one, it should have our link tree in the bio. You can follow us along. We're live every Monday during the season at 9 p.m. on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitch. We cover Orlando City. Try to keep everybody as up to date. We're not affiliated with the club other than our fandom, unlike some other podcasts with Orlando City. And we, our our content is 100% how we feel. It's not filtered by anybody. It's nothing else. It's 100% ours and completely genuine. So when we're up, we're up. When we're down, we're down. And there's, unfortunately, very little in between.
All right. Thank you, John. And on to the next one.
Yep. Thank you guys for having me.
That's going to be it for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode of For the Crew podcast, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. And this has been For the Crew.